Day Texts with Greg Stafford. We meet every weekday morning, unless otherwise scheduled, at 5 a.m. to consider a portion of the biblical record. We're working our way through the New Testament, and today we're starting a new letter, the letter of James. It's not exactly clear who this James is, though most seem to believe it is the half-brother of Jesus. So I'm not going to get into too much discussion about the authorship. There are a number of references in the book of Acts and in other New Testament documents to a couple of different James, and it could be one of those James or the half-brother of Jesus. So the fact is that the first century Christians knew who this was because there was no other identification required. So it's not so much important to us exactly who wrote this letter, although being the half-brother of Jesus, it might make us more aware of certain things he says, though he doesn't get into too much about hidden details involving Jesus' life. So there's not a whole lot we would be able to glean with that understanding of him as the author of this letter. So I'm going to set that aside and focus more on the content of the texts like we usually do. And so just know that it's not entirely clear which James wrote this letter, but there are several possible candidates, all of whom are faithful Christians in the biblical writings. So as far as the document itself, the letter of James, it has a very good textual history. James is represented in parts in the early papyri. It's part of it is represented in P23 in the 2nd century, P20 of the 3rd century, and P100 also of the late 3rd century. James is also preserved in Codexes Aleph or Sinaiticus, Alexandrinus, and Codex C, Ephraemi Syri Rescriptus. So it's not in the Vaticanus Codex because Vaticanus has missing sections after a part of the book of Hebrews. And of course, the letter of James follows the book of Hebrews in most canonical orders. So in any case, that's a very good textual history. Early representation, the early church fathers from Origen to Irenaeus and Tertullian all quote and refer to James, and I believe they all refer to him as the brother of Jesus. So in any case, let's take a look at verses 1 through 5 of the opening of the letter of James. Now I've included a note in the description below with the texts, so you can read that on your own because it involves a discussion of what is meant by, as you'll see in verse 1, the 12 tribes being scattered or dispersed. There are different senses in which the Jews as a specific people were dispersed, what is known as the diaspora. And there are also references in the New Testament involving the noun diaspora and the verb diaspeirô that involve more than just the Jews in terms of those being dispersed throughout the territories of that nation. So, or of the different nations involved in the first century, Jews, Christians, Gentiles. So if you look, in fact, at the reference I give in the footnote, K.L. Schmidt in the Theological Dictionary of the New Testament, Volume 2, says it could refer to any religious or national religious minority living in the territory of another religious or political society. So the point is that when James refers to the Jews, the 12 tribes scattered about, when you go on to read the letter, he's clearly talking to Christians. So when he refers to them as the 12 tribes, we believe that's a spiritual reference that can include the literal tribes in terms of Jewish Christians who belong to them, but that is more of a spiritual tribal association like we see also depicted in the book of Revelation in chapters 7 and 14. So I wanted to mention that so we don't get off onto it after we discuss the text, so I can make applications about the rest of what is said. But if you're interested in learning more about the diaspora of the Jews or of the Jews who became Christians, take a look at the note and look at the references, and that should give you some more information. Okay, so let's take a look at verses 1 through 5, and then we'll make a brief application. I'll give a few updates on some of our other shows, and we'll be on our way. All right, James 1:1 states, I'm going to read 1:1 through 1:5 unless I break off for a brief comment. James, a servant of God and of Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes, to those in the dispersion, greetings. Verse 2. Whenever you come face to face with different types of trials, you must regard everything as a cause for joy, my brothers. Verse 3, knowing that the process of testing your faith will develop the power to remain strong. Verse 4, developing this power to remain strong must have an end result, so that you may be successful and complete, not lacking in anything. Verse 5, but if any one of you lacks wisdom, you must ask for it from God, the one who gives to everyone generously and without shame, for it will be given to the one who asks for it. Now you notice, right after he greets, the people he's referring to, whom we would consider as the spiritual Christians, spiritual Jewish Christians, although he could be specifically referring to Jewish Christians. In either case, notice right after he gives that greeting, the very first thing he does is talk about what you do when you're facing tests or trials. It's number one. He greets them and says, listen, when you are facing trials, you have to be joyful. That's very difficult, right? When you're facing a trial and things aren't going your way and people are opposing you, how do you have joy? Well, because you're being tested in order to prepare you for something else. So these tests or difficulties in life that we face, I don't know if many of you work out or lift weights or things like that. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I do it occasionally. And it's not, you can come to enjoy the process. You can come to enjoy working out and getting your body moving and exercising so that it fills with oxygen and blood. And it can help you become stronger, endure more. It can increase your overall health because of the circulation that is involved, the detoxification. But the act of exercising, the actual process of lifting weights or going through these movements, it's not easy. It's a trial, it's a test. It's a self-administered test you're putting on your body and your mind, because you have to force yourself, to get through the exertion, the difficult, strenuous part when you reach, kind of the end of how many reps you can do or whatever it is you're exercising with. It's a test. It's a trial. But it's easier to endure because you're self-administering it, basically. So the only difference between that and these kinds of trials is we're not self-administering them. Other people are administering them to us in ways that either result from their lack of faith, their opposition to us, and so, we don't see them coming. We don't see them coming like we do when we get ready to go work out. We know, okay, I'm going to get to the gym, pick the machine or pick the weights, and I have to get my focus ready and start working. You don't get that opportunity with these kinds of trials. They just come right at you. You might be able to see some of them coming, and if you prepare and you're aware, you will. But not always. They come at us at times in ways where we're usually the most vulnerable, right? So they're very difficult. But you already know, if you have faith, that these tests are coming. We know that because the choices we make about the God we serve and the Messiah whom we accept put us at odds with the ones who don't, right? So if you have people in the world today who follow a Luciferian lifestyle, whether they believe in Lucifer as a real being or they just believe in a Babylonian type or satanic type lifestyle, depending on your association of Lucifer, well, they're not going to be excited or happy at all about you talking about Jah. I mean, that's the last thing they want to hear. But that's what they're going to hear. We're not going to stop. Okay, that's our role. That's what we're here to do. Praise Jah. We're not here to praise ourselves and to go soak up every moment of pleasure we can find at everybody's expense. Okay, we're here to show love to each other, to help each other where we can without being taken advantage of. People will do that. You have to watch out. And we're here to praise the God Jah who made all of us to love and to work together for the common good. Very difficult today. So we know we're going to face trials. It's a fact. Our focus and the mindset I just described doesn't line up with the majority of people in the world. So we have to be cautious. Like Jesus says, cautious as serpents and innocent as doves. We have to both keep our faith and manage our faith in ways that allow us to face these tests and still survive in this world. Now, when we do that, we have to remember there's a reason. Okay, so the end result, look at verse 4, developing this power to remain strong must have an end result. So you may be successful and complete, not lacking anything. Okay, what's the end result then? The end result is that you will be better able to deal with the tests and trials that are still coming. So each test and trial, just like each workout, makes you stronger and more prepared for the next workout. Right? So when you go to work out, you have a program, you should have a goal. I'm going to do this much weight, and I'm going to try to increase this much over this period of time. And then you check your results, you match your goals, you make adjustments if you failed. If you succeeded, you know what works right. You see what I'm saying? You evaluate what you're doing so that you can maximize your success and minimize your failures. You have to have an end result. Your end result in working out physically is to get stronger, healthier physically. Your end result for remaining strong when your faith is being tested is to become stronger in your belief and awareness of Jah and Jesus so that we can help other people become the same way. And then if we're lacking, it sounds easy when we talk about it, but it is not easy. Right? No test or trial that we don't expect, even if we kind of know they're out there, they're coming because of our choices in life. Doesn't matter. Even the ones we prepare for, like a workout, they can be hard and strenuous. Well, the ones that you're prepared for on some level, but you don't know when they're coming, they're more difficult. So if you find yourself having a hard time, we're doing all of this for Jah and Jesus. Well, then we should turn to them and say, I'm trying to help promote your name and belief in your Son, and I need help. I need wisdom. I need assistance, and if you can help me, if not, then if I have to endure this, so be it, right? We cannot always expect Jah to save us from everything, because otherwise there would be no testing. There would be no proving of our faith. That's why we're Christians, because we know that we ultimately have to be tested like Jesus, because it's the right way. You're going to be tested either way in some way, and then ultimately give your life in this world. Well, which is it going to be for? For something that has nothing to do with Jah, or that has everything to do with Jah? One or the other. You might think something either involves Jah or not. And if it involves Jah, you're going to be tested in these ways by people who don't accept him. And you're going to have to be ready. And it's going to be tough. But you absolutely can get past every single thing that comes in to stop you. Because think of what you've already overcome. Think of what those who've lived before us have overcome. Now think of the God we serve. Okay? And even if we have to give our life, that's the whole point. We give our life in service to Jah, so we receive it again. Who of us thinks that Jah isn't going to give life again to someone who gives their life to praise him and to honor his Son? Everything we see in history and in all the people who have worshipped and praised Jah shows us exactly how he views the ones who stand up for him and who do not yield to pressure. Even if we do and we make mistakes, we turn around. We get going back the right way. That happens. All of us make mistakes. Even people who wrote biblical letters like Peter, terrible things. Paul, murdered Christians. Okay, so there is not really a sin that you can't overcome unless you openly oppose Jah and his spirit in ways where you knowingly are antagonistic to them and you know that they're real, like the demons do. But you just keep doing it anyway. We're sinful though, so we have a condition that even if we know, we sometimes can't get out of it, or it gets us. But it doesn't mean we have to promote it. Oh, look at this great sin I did right here. We don't, you Christians, when we make mistakes and do things wrong, when we fail these tests, you get back up and you try again. A righteous man may fall 7 times, the Bible says in Proverbs. Every single time you will get back up. So I don't care how many times you fall. I care how many times you get up and get going again. I don't care if you fall 1,000 times. You better get up 1,001 or 1,000. I guess if it's 1 to 1. Either way, that's the main thing I want you to remember. You never stay down. You have Jah on your side, and he will give you power and wisdom if you just ask for it. So, okay, and I know we all go through different difficulties and trials, so that's why it's important for us to trust Jah. He will give us what we need, or he will help us to endure. And sometimes you have to go through it, right? We have to go through things with our families or friends, and they're just not something that ends right away. You got to go through it a little ways. And so Jah will help you to endure. Develop the power to remain strong. And that's what tests of your faith do. Just like tests of your body make your body strong, tests of your faith make your faith strong. So that's good information for all of us, because we're going to get tests every day. I don't think there's one day that we're going to go through where there's not going to be some test. And more or less, of course, different days, different people, different things. Same answer, the same answer. When you come face to face with various trials, view it as joy, if you can. It's not easy when you're dealing with the direct difficulties of certain trials, but ultimately, if we think of the fact that Jah and Jesus and the others are watching, and that we're performing on the stage of the world, and sometimes we take a fall, but if you get up and you keep performing, you're going to finish the show. And I guarantee you, Jah and Jesus will be there applauding. Doesn't matter if anyone else there is. Who else matters, right? As long as those two are there, approving you, you're good. You're good. Not good in the sense Jesus said no one was good. You know what I mean. You're good in terms of their acceptance of you, because you did what was very hard to do, even though people were trying to stop you. You did it. Remember, courage is the ability to do something you know is right, no matter how hard it is. So keep those things in mind. I think that will help you. They help me. When I read these texts and I think about them, especially with you, I get motivated. The second I'm done here, I do have work to do at times and different things, but I start focusing on how I can better my situation, the people I'm around, make some new videos, put some writing, whatever I can do to help people. I start to get motivated in that way. This when I consider the word and the text in our day texts. So speaking of that, I have some new ideas for the Hollywood garbage dump, and we're going to start to get into some things here where you're really going to see a higher level. If you think the videos we've been doing so far, Making Babies, Shazam, and the Captain Marvel trailer reviews, have been filled with hidden imagery and symbolism that's not directly consistent with the movies we go to see, you haven't seen anything yet. I've got some videos coming up where, they're loaded. They're loaded with things that I don't believe any of us were expecting when it came to considering seeing a movie. or certain movies that I'm talking about. So keep that in mind. And be looking for those videos. Now, as far as I know, someone in the comments, sometimes it may seem that God doesn't answer us, but I don't think that's true. Sometimes, as you've probably been told, sometimes the answer is just either no or not now. Remember, Jesus asked Jah, in a sense, so he said, if it's your will, let this cup pass from me. Sometimes the cup cannot pass because that's the purpose for which you are there. That's your time. That's your time to shine when it is most difficult for you. I know this is hard to imagine, and especially when you're actually going through it, to believe. But when you are under the greatest stress and test, that is when you can shine the most. And it's not by not being weak or failing. That's expected. It's by not giving up. It's by continuing on in spite of the difficulty. Right? You chose to follow Jesus. What did he have to do? Is what you're going through as bad as that? If not, then you're probably okay, because it can get pretty bad, as he showed us. So I know that doesn't always make it easier for us to deal with our difficulties, but it wasn't easy for him either. And we have chosen this path. So if we've chosen that path, then we have to walk it and accept what takes place and know that Jah will take care of us, just like he took care of his son. As bad as it wasn't beyond what he could bear for the purpose that he came, and now look at where he is. So one way or the other, we have to go through this world. But if we do it the right way, we could end up with a really great reward. And I think that is worth it. And so we should continue and help each other along the way. In any case, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Keep looking for the videos. I will do my best to put some up this weekend. And then this Saturday, we're going to do another Ancient Aliens show. So Christians and Ancient Aliens and Christians Part 3. And I'm going to focus almost entirely in this episode on the evidence that the ancient alien theorists present about the flood. So I'm going to talk about the evidence of the flood in relation to the Ancient Aliens show. And then I'm going to also talk about, of course, how they interpret some of the evidence that they show with regard to the cause of the flood, the time of the flood, and the size of the flood. So we're gonna really talk about a lot of flood-related evidence this Saturday on CW Jah Talk number 13. So I hope you will all join me for that. The show will start at 8:30 live. We'll get right to it. I'll do a brief intro. We'll show some clips. And then I will look at your questions and comments and try to include them as much as I can. So thank you all for joining me. I appreciate that. I look forward to tomorrow's text. We're now in the letter of James. A lot of good information. I've translated the whole thing. So we'll be able to go through it and progressively consider all of the things that he wrote down for Christians in the first century, but that are just as important for us today. So thank you all once again for joining me. I look forward to tomorrow's day text and the continuation of our review of the letter of James. So I hope you all join me tomorrow at 5 a.m. for that show.